Welcome to another Account-Based Friday edition. We've got a special guest joining us from London today, May Habib from Writer. May, who is the CEO and co-founder of Writer, and we'll get into her background in a moment. Of course, you can't have a conversation these days without talking about generative AI, and that's going to be the topic of today's conversation. We start each week with a poll, as you know, and the poll this week was talking about the legal implications of generative AI and the concern level that people have around generative AI. Are they concerned about the legal implications, legal/data implications? Are they not concerned? Are they very concerned? So far, at least my perspective on this is it's so new that I don't know if anybody's kind of thinking through the legal implications. I'm sure the lawyers are, but I don't know if the marketers have really thought through the implications of AI, the data and the security issues. But I don't know, Meg, what do you see? You're a practitioner. What do you see from your side?
Yeah, I mean, I would put myself in the somewhat concerned category because we haven't gone all in on using it. So it's not like the first thing I'm thinking of. That said, I work for a company that produces a ton of content, and it is original content that takes a lot of work to produce. So I worry very much about, sort of internal and external implications for content businesses like ours, and sort of what the level of disruption is, but also what the level of opportunity is in terms of, this being a tool that we can use in ways we've never even really thought about to help make our production process better, faster, more profitable too. In the end, I think, but we're just at the very early stages of understanding that. So I think I probably chose somewhat concerned, but I think I should be very concerned. But also it's opportunity, right? Anything new brings a ton of amazing opportunity. And that's why we're so excited that you're here with us today, May. And thank you. Would love for you to tell us a little bit about you and a little bit about your company so that we can help people understand sort of the lens that you're taking on this exciting new, shift in the market.
Yeah, it really is so exciting. Thanks for having me on the show. Writer is a full stack generative AI platform. And what we mean by that it is that it is both the underlying foundational models, these LLMs that we all know what LLM stands for, very different than even a year ago. And on top of that, we give enterprises and teams the ability to build UIs that use their own data and the LLM in this super secure way in one environment, in one platform. And so we've got incredible depth in marketing use cases because guess what? Every company does thought leadership a different way. Every company does case studies a different way. Every company has the audiences that they personalize for and the segments that they verticalize for. And so it's all too specific. This is all not even including brand stuff yet. For really sophisticated marketers to find the stuff that comes out of ChatGPT to be good enough, frankly. And so we come in after lots of teams have experimented and lots of people have, used tools and get to come in and really work with a team in its own content, its own context, its own audience. And we tune each use case for the exact type of content and impact that they're trying to have with all the particular deliverables that the team's in charge of. So we do that for marketing. We also do it for comms teams, sales teams, support teams. But the approach is really what is differentiated here is that large language model is pretty commoditized, provider to provider now. And what is really the most impactful thing is what does the LLM know about your data? And what do the actual UIs understand about your business and your use cases? So it's a really interesting approach. We're at writer.com if anybody wants to go into depth about our product, but excited to talk to you about really the general things that we are seeing in teams that are adopting generative AI today.
It's an interesting hybrid model you have there. I hadn't thought about kind of your corporate data, mixing it with, I guess, kind of the ChatGPT 4.0 or 3.0, like whatever the LLM that you described there. Um, in terms of the poll, like what are you seeing in terms of risks around security? Are people thinking about that? Is it too soon to be thinking about it? Like what's your kind of take on what you're seeing security wise? Because you're probably right at the bleeding edge of a lot of those security conversations, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of sophisticated organizations have actually put the brakes on generative AI rollouts in favor of just taking a beat to really understand what are the most prominent use cases, who does want to dig in here, and then what are the sources of risk from what inputs go in to the prompts that the LLMs then have access to on the positive side, what are the sources of competitive advantage that live in proprietary data sets that we want to build generative AI into. So there is definitely, I think, a really healthy, not pause, because I think the best organizations learn by doing. So people, and we encourage that, continuing to learn by doing. But thinking about what is the AI code of conduct internally? What is the AI manifesto that we're going to put in front of users? If somebody reads about an actual anecdote on our blog, is that going to be a real thing that happened? Can we certify that? Are we going to be an organization that proofreads and ensures that every single word that goes out is going to have been seen by somebody internally? I think in a year from now, most companies are going to have both published internal AI principles. We will use AI here. We simply will not use AI here, even if we can. And they're going to have communicated that to the public. So I think it's going to be as common as terms of service and privacy policies. What are people using AI for internally, and how are they communicating it externally?
What do you think are some of the ways that companies can get started on building that kind of a policy? Who needs to be involved?
So there is an excellent resource on our website around AI guidelines. If you go to writer.com/blog, you should be able to find it on that home page. There is a downloadable there, literally simply to take the policies that we give our customers that we've built with lawyers that they can incorporate internally. I think who becomes responsible for this? We have been advocating for this kind of role of AI program director internally. And it's we have definitely seen in our most innovative customers the role really emerge naturally. The person who is kind of taking the charge, really leaning in, very experimental on the technology. And then internally, understands the stakeholders and the workflows and what the company's objectives are cross-functionally, really good at showcases and hackathons and all the ways to get people excited about what others are doing. So, there's no easy answer to that, Meg, right now. It's pretty just kind of emergent. There's not strategy around it at most places, but we do think it should be more strategic, and are encouraging companies to really think about what AI program management inside of their companies will look like.
Makes a ton of sense. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, no, you bring up a really interesting point about the companies that are working on AI overall, and just thinking, because you're kind of at the tip of the spear here, and also in the Bay Area, which typically is forward thinking in and of itself. What types of companies are you seeing adopt generative AI or engaged in conversation maybe more frequently than perhaps others, even though it's probably a very horizontal application?
Yeah.
Like, what are you seeing there in terms of company adoption, or even talking about strategy sessions around generative AI?
Totally. And we've done a lot of these strategy sessions with executive teams and C-suite. And I would say the thing that really ties those teams together is a data strategy that wasn't born yesterday. And I think the reason there's such an overlap in kind of generative AI innovation and longstanding data innovation is that so many of the really excellent, very high business impact use cases rely on differentiated data sets. And the more organized that is inside of a company, the more accessible it is. And I can give you some examples, things that we have automated for our healthcare customers. Their ability to have data on the last decade of work in ABC type of team, or their ability to have this type of data across 20 million records. I mean, it is really leading to, without giving too much confidential information away, it is really leading to some breakthrough applications. And when I compare that to companies that come inbound and are excited about what is possible here, but for us to do something similar would require digging stuff up across thousands of users or dozens of teams, and it all sits in PDFs and images, and it's not really in we've got companies that can download a CSV file. And it's got a decade worth of data that we can then use to train their model. I mean, it is just brilliant. And so that didn't happen overnight. It's been a decade of working to get everything in the cloud, and then really working to operationalize, what we used to call big data, and now is just data. So I would say really digitally open for a long time, and very big data native, I would say, have been the biggest advantages. Oh, John, you're mute.
I hate when I talk on mute. So it almost sounds like attributes of companies, like it's so horizontal that you're looking for those attributes of kind of a company that has big data and open to the digital flow of information. Am I following you correctly there on who's adopting?
Yeah, and actually, you made me think of something else. I think another thing that folks have got in common for sure is that yes, the data is horizontal and open, but the people are too. And so these leaders are really close to their CIOs. The CIOs are really embedded into the business teams. AI and data people are cross-functional. There is a lot of collaboration that happens across the company. Marketing and comms aren't siloed, because a lot of the very boom, impressive, immediately accretive applications are in marketing and communications. And so the fact that those folks are really empowered to go out there and explore innovative technology, they're connected and close to their AI, ML, and data colleagues, that is really a function of just how collaborative is the culture in general. And I've definitely seen that to be a critical part of doing this successfully.
So I feel a little like we're talking about sort of the classic crossing the chasm scenario, right? Where you've got some companies who are ready because they are big data native. I like that phrase. And who have been investing in accessible, quality, usable and meaningful data for some time. And then we're going to need to jump over to the people who haven't. And I've always loved the saying, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. If I need to plant a tree today, because I know that I'm going to need to tap into the power of generative AI, and I don't want to be a laggard, adopting after everyone else has already done the cool stuff. What do I need to do to plant my tree today?
Great question. The learning starts when you start. So the strategy is great. You need to do that. You need to have policies plant that tree now and get your hands dirty now. I have never, ever seen, and I'd put big money on this. I don't think there's ever been technology that the C-suite has asked to be hands-on, inside of more than generative AI. We've had CMOs email me on the weekend being like, hey, can you add me to our instance? I want to see what is the fuss about? And we've had MDs with API keys. I mean, it's amazing. People really are understanding that this is going to change every team in the company and just about every business workflow, and they want to see for themselves how it works. They want that their own kind of like visceral understanding of what's possible, because like a lot is not possible. So like the real like AI literacy is a result of like digging in. And so I love that. I'm going to borrow that. Plant the tree today. Get started today. You know, we obviously can help. I think the most advanced use cases are happening inside of Writer. I know, because we talk to everybody and folks using lots of different tools. And so really happy to connect people with others in their industry or sub-industry, similar size and scope, and connect them to what they're doing. We actually have a roundtable tonight, a series of customer roundtables where we're introducing customers that are like-minded and at similar stages to each other. And I'm chairing those. So small peer-to-peer conversations at the executive level that allow people to really learn from others.
Friday night conversations. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, just double clicking a little bit, and I'm thinking about a lot of enterprises that we run across. You almost have like islands of information, of data. So for example, and I don't know if Writer gets involved with these use cases, but you might have call recording and all of your calls recorded, and that's an island of information. And then you might have that integrated to your CRM, or you might not have your information, but you've got another set of information sitting in a CRM system and yet a third set in your email system. Does Writer work across these different platforms, or is it typically you've got a form feed, like you got to feed the engine with a document like a .doc or a Google Doc? Like, how does that work when you've got all these islands, especially with healthcare, which probably has a lot of legacy systems as well?
Yeah. So being multimodal is really important here. Multimodal for both the types of training data and fine-tuned data that we can take in, as well as, you know, kind of at the end user level, what it is that they can query or access or point the model to for what they're trying to do. And so we have to be able to, read a audio file or a video, regardless of what platform it was created on. So I do think multimodal, both the reading and the writing, if you will, is critical for mainstream adoption. Because the folks who are the early adopters, the folks who are more technically savvy, there are a lot of ways to, a lot of strategies to align data sets or training data or input data or prompting information. But to really get to the mainstream employee, the technology is going to have to get easier to use, and it's got to have to feel like speaking to another person and not speaking to a machine. I mean, like all of this, like prompt writing frenzy, I think is not going to suit the mainstream user, because they're not going to go through that type of training. It's just not going to stick in the same way that it does for someone who is more technically capable. And I'm much more excited about making the underlying technology better, so we can talk to large language models and generative AI platforms like we would a colleague, versus needing to learn how to talk to AI.
That's an interesting point, because I do think, you know, the prompt area has become, you know, almost like its own skill set. It's sort of like the new version of SEO.
Yes.
And the fact is, not that many people are really, really great at SEO, right? They haven't learned all the tips and tricks because it's complicated. And people who are good at it, you know, are you know, have an advantage. I feel like prompts right now are similar to that, just with fewer people who are doing it just now. But I think that's an interesting case of, will that become less of an important skill as the technology evolves to be more natural, and require, you know, sort of less expertise, and just make it easier to sort of use in natural language? I'm interested in that. What if you were to guess on the time frame for the technology to evolve to a point where it's going to be less about a specialized skill set that only a few have and more about a general capability, literacy. I like that word. Any thoughts on the time frame there?
Well, in the enterprise, we're doing it now. So the way that writer works, and in consumer, we need a bit longer. But the way that writer works is the goal is whether it's Meg or John asking for deliverable X, right? You all are getting something that is pretty darn consistent every time, right? Right now, you change one word in a 3-page prompt, maybe not one word, but like 5 words, you could actually get something really different, right? Even as the same user. And like the most important workflows inside of a team are collaborative workflows, like multiple people are accessing them. And, you gotta be really high trust that the same set of inputs is going to get you the same consistent output. And so what we're doing is essentially abstracting the prompt, right? Think of it as like ad libs for a prompt that sits in the back end that like it was very hard to fuck up as a user. So, what we're asking end users to know is what a landing page is about and who the audience is and what campaign is it part of. Those are much more important things to grab out of an end user than like, being expert level prompting. That's like the tool should take care of that. And that's our approach in the enterprise.
May, we're tight on time here, and I want to be respectful because I know you're over in London. You've got a busy schedule. Is this the best way to reach you? I assumptively put LinkedIn. Is that the best way to reach, or is there another way?
Me. I got to figure out what fancy tool you're using to do these real-time annotations. I love it. That is me. I'm also just May at Writer. Anyone who's listening or wants a helping hand. The team is amazing, and this is literally my full-time job is answering people who need help in my inbox. So reach out on LinkedIn or email.
May at writer.com or .co?
May at writer.com.
Okay, gotcha. And we'll put that up as well. Really grateful. We could ask you questions all day long here.
Thanks,
such a hot topic. Maybe we have you come back for a second victory lap if you down the road. But thank you so much for investing time. Meg, I hate to cut you off, but we're right at the bottom of the hour, and I know you've got a hard stop as well. So probably doing everybody a favor.
Thank you.
This was fun. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. And we'll look forward to next Friday, mystery guest next Friday. So thanks very much, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks all.
Thank you.